Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man. So you guys know we got the U.S. Championship going on right now, or you might not know, but if you didn't know, then now you do. All right, man. So this is Robson versus Wesley So, taking out of round number 2. Now, some of you guys that know your chess history, it's not really history, but I mean, these two used to play at Webster University. They were roommates. They were like BFFs, but they're not BFFs during this game. They got to turn that off and be, a tiger. Be like, anyways. So all of my people that are coming from the Philippines, I will say maraming salamat. Anybody coming from around the world, I appreciate you very much for stopping by. Like I said, this is round number 2. Without any further ado, let's take a look and see what we got for this game, son. All right, man. So we got D4. One of the best by tests. We got knight to F6. So we start off with an Indian game. We do see the move C4. We got E6. Knight goes to F3. And this is actually known as, it's not officially that, but it's kind of known as like the Anti-Nimzo Indian, because there's a lot of players, that really, they kind of dread knight to C3 and then bishop to B4. And this is known as the Nimzo Indian. And they just really kind of don't want the structural damage. So they go ahead and say, hey, man, I'm going to go knight F3 first. I'm going to kind of see what black wants to do. I am kind of one of these players. I was not a super huge fan of the Nimzo and bishop B4 because it's super common. But we do see the move D5, so we have just a general queen's gambit declined here. We do see knight going to C3, pawn takes C4, and then we do see the move E4. And this is basically white's dreams. It's not like white is winning the game, but one of the major pushes that white wants to do if they are playing D4 is to try to get D4 and E4 in. And basically a majority of black's fight and a majority of the openings is trying to prevent black from getting that. So usually you'll have a pawn on D5 and with a knight and stuff, it's really, really kind of clamping down on the E4 square. So in this position, we do not have any of that, really, and we have E4 supported by knight to C3. We do see the move B5 trying to protect the C4 pawn. We got the move E5, knight goes to D5, and then we do see knight takes B5. And even though it's not anything to write home about, it's not like you're winning the game. I mean, white would be a little bit for choice here. Black does have a little bit of structural damage here, and white doesn't have any of that at all. So, I mean, it's just a little slight stuff, man. We do see knight going to B6, trying to protect C4. We do see bishop to E3. We got knight to C6. So, just typical development stuff. We do see the move A3. This can be a very annoying move, especially in these types of positions, because we are going to be checking the king. And it just kind of delays your development, man. You don't want to be uncomfortable. You want to win the game. We do see the queen going to D7. We got knight back down to C3. There wasn't really... there kind of was some discoveries going on. If you just didn't pay attention to what black was trying to do, you could possibly take here and win you a knight and a pawn. So you had to be careful. So we did see knight C3. We got bishop B7. We got queen to C2. We got bishop to E7. We do see rook going to D1. And it might kind of look like, this rook is never going to touch this queen. But, it is usually a great idea to put a rook opposite a queen, and you never know, you might get some pushes in, captures, type of stuff. So it is a very good prophylactic move. We do see knight going to A5. We got bishop to E2. We got the move F5, pawn takes F6, pawn takes F6, and then we do see the move castles. And one of the it's not a super huge idea. It's more so when you kind of have a bishop here and a rook here plopping down into the B3 square. But that is kind of what capturing on C4 is allowing you to do. Kind of giving you a support point on B3. So sometimes it could be very relevant. We do see rook going to G8. We got knight up to E4. And then we have the very nice queen to A4. Now, you kind of have a little bit of an issue. You have thrown this knight out here in the center of the board. And the queen is the only piece that's currently defending it. So if you could try to find a way to deflect the queen away, maybe you can win you a knight. But we did see queen taking A4 and then knight taking A4 in this position. But backing up, it was actually a little bit more preferred to go back to B1 and just basically just maintain, the protection of this knight. And we're not really, like I said, worried about knight to B3 because, it's not really attacking anything in a position. But like I said, we did not see that. We got queen taking, knight taking, and then we do see knight going up to C5. And this actually kind of gets us into somewhat of a critical position. It's not super critical. You have some good options if you are Wesley So, but there's a very nice technique in the position. We did see knight taking c5, pawn taking c5, and I mean, everything is everything. It's not like you're in a bad position, but something that was definitely worth mentioning is right now this knight on a4 is pressuring this pawn on b2, and I mean, there's a really good reason why you went queen a4 and then took on a4 with the knight, so that you can put a little bit of pressure on this b2 pawn. So you actually have the option here of taking with the bishop, and then after the pawn takes, you would see something like bishop to d5, just kind of plugging everything up, making this rook much less effective. And I mean, basically, we just still kind of have, you know, knight capturing b2. So you would be putting white kind of in a defensive position. They'd probably have to go something like rook up here to d2. After the rook swung over, you'd be pretty much putting all your pieces in defensive position. So that's not really where you want to be at. But like I said, we did see knight takes c5, pawn takes c5, and we got the rook going to b8. We got the move g3. This rook is actually very, very effective on this file. So, I mean, we're just going to go ahead and play g3. We're going to go ahead and blunt whatever black is trying to do. We do see bishop to d5. We got knight up to d4. We got rook taking b2. We got bishop to h5 with check. And this is actually kind of an uncomfortable situation. Somewhat of an uncomfortable situation if you are black, but if you find the right move, which Wesley So did, it won't be super uncomfortable. And the right move is rook to g6. Some of you guys might be sitting there wondering, like, bro, I could just move on my king. Why am I putting my rook like blocking that check? Well, there's a really, really, really good reason. This is absolutely the best move in the position. If let's say we picked the most logical alternative, obviously if we go king to d8, you're going to be looking at knight takes e6 with check, and I mean, you know, you didn't make a really, really great move with your king, and you're exploiting this pin, and next move probably this bishop's going to be dropping. So instead of that, we would probably maybe see something like king to d7, because you're like, hey man, this takes care of everything, right? Absolutely not. Knight takes e6 is still on the board, and you really don't want to do something like king takes because you're looking at rook f to e1, and you have some issues. You can't go back here. You really don't want to go there because that's just going to drop the bishop. You don't really want to leave this rook right here because you're looking at a discovery, just winning it completely. So it's kind of like, what do? You're in a really, really tough position if you are in this one. So rook to g6 is absolutely the best way to go about doing this. We do see rook going to b1. We got rook taking b1, rook taking b1. We got knight down to b3. And it seems like it's giving some material away, but you are trying to correct your pawn chain, so it's kind of worth it. Knight takes, pawn takes. We got bishop down to d1, and white is going to have to take some time, you know, to get this, get this piece. So we do see bishop taking b3, bishop taking b3, rook taking b3. We got king going down to c6. Now, you know, Wesley So's trying to activate his king a little bit, saying, hey, man, I'm trying to get my king into action. You know, what do we got going on? So the rook goes to b4. We got a5. We got rook to a4. King goes to b5. So we have seen the king come all the way down now, attacking the rook. So we do slide over to h4, but I mean, everything's still fairly even. I mean, Wesley So got a little bit of an advantage, but it's like, I mean, it's not like he's just completely winning the game. It's like half a pawn's worth type deal. We do see rook going to g7. We got a4 with check, trying to back the king up a little bit. The king goes back to c6. We got bishop down to d2. Bishop takes c5. We got a rook going to f4. You know, constantly tickling black's pieces, saying, hey, man, you don't like your pawns, right? We do see rook to f7. We got bishop taking a5. And I mean, everything's fairly even. I mean, you know, what black needs to kind of be careful of, though, too, yeah, is you got this passed pawn over here, and it is outside, but the king is in a really good position right here to make sure that there's not going to be any funny business. We got king going to d5, rook going to g4. We do see bishop down to d4, rook to g8. We got c5. We got bishop to b6. We got the move e5. And then we see rook to d8, which 9 times out of 10, you're like, hey, man, I'm going to check you, and we're going to be having a little bit of something going on. But the king really didn't want to just hang out on d5 anyway. So it's like, hey, man, I was just going to go ahead and move anyway. So we do see king to e4. And in this position, what you've noticed, if you've been paying attention, is we have the king that basically has came all the way down here, came up here, and came down here. So there's been, I mean, it's kind of subtle if you're not really paying attention, but the king has actually had a lot of activity in this position, and it just is going to get better and better. We do see rook going over to c8. And this kind of, if you paid attention to what I just got done saying, this is not the most accurate move because we do see king to f3. And like I said, the king went down here like this, went back up, and he basically just kind of just made a light square journey all the way to f3. So look at this position. We got the king right here. We got this king right here. We got this bishop attacking here. And so if we're talking about kings, I mean, Wesley So's king is doing way better than Ray Robson's king. Ray Robson's king, I don't think it's moved since he's castled. So, you know, we're in an endgame. So, I mean, you know, one of the major things that you cannot overlook is making sure that your king is active. So that is what we see right here. Bam. Okay, let me not mess that up. Okay, so we got bishop taking c5, and we have actually reached a position. There is a absolute killer #1 move in this position. If you want to go ahead and pause the video and try to see if you can guess that move, go ahead and do so. Okay, so if you add up everything that I just got done saying, you know, you got the king on f3, and it's like the best king that you can ever possibly imagine. Then you would be thinking, hey, man, you know what? This king really doesn't have a whole lot of, like, you know, movability right now. It can go right here, but it's going to have to take a few moves to try to get up out of there. You got this bishop that can, like, kind of, you know, start hitting and stuff like that right there. I mean, you know, the king is not stalemated, but it's kind of like restricted in its movement. So that is an important factor. So if you thought about that and you made the move rook to b7, you would be absolutely correct because, bro, if this rook comes down here and checks this king, kind of what do you do? Because right now you're mated at this point. There's another subtle thing in the position that's going to come up in a second. We would be looking at h3 or h4. You got to give yourself some luft. Rook to b1 would check, and then the king goes to h2, and then we see rook to c1. And, I mean, if you guys are looking like I'm looking, this wins an entire piece. There is no way to retreat this bishop in any type of fashion that's going to protect this rook. So you are going to have to go down swinging. And this is the best thing you can do, is to give up the exchange. So that is what we see Ray Robson do. We go ahead and just see him take on d4, rook takes on c8, and then you retreat the bishop back. And it might not look like you're completely losing if you are white, because you're like, hey, I got 4 pawns, and, like, I mean, you know, black has 3 pawns, yeah, they got a rook, but what? Like, I mean, there's no way to hold this position at all, especially against somebody like Wesley So. And who better to know that than his roommate, former roommate, Ray Robson. We got rook going down to c1. We do see the move g4. We got rook to a1. We got bishop to d8, and then we do see rook to a2. And unfortunately, there's no way to really back the bishop up and protect any legitimate kind of way and protect this pawn also. And you are just in a really, really bad position. So it is in this position that Ray Robson resigns the game. Like I said, you know, you have a rook versus a bishop, which almost always is losing. And you have too much pressure on all of White's pieces. You got this pawn that's hit. You got this pawn that's hit. I mean, as soon as this rook checks here, you're going to be forcing the king back, and you're going to be able to kind of start to slide over and pick up these pawns, stuff like that. So Ray Robson, being the G that he is, he said, man, I don't even want none of that, bro. I know you because, like, we used to eat breakfast together and everything. So I'm good. So all of my people from the Philippines, I would say, meron ming salamat ang king magkaibigan po sa nanonood ng king video. Hello ulit. Appreciate you guys very much for coming by. Mabuting pagbati to you. Ingat lagi. And I'm going to catch everybody next time.